This is just the best. Back when Donald Trump tweeted about how stable and smart he is and how he's not experiencing cognitive decline, I tweeted and also mentioned on the show, when you're the president of the United States and you're actively talking about and trying to convince people that you're both mentally stable and smart, you've sort of already lost, and that's not a good thing. We have another example of where now Donald Trump is insisting that he's not racist. Okay, here's a very short video of after the entire shithole countries comment and a whole bunch of other stuff. Here's Trump insisting he's just not racist at all.
Security at the border. We have people pouring in. They don't want security at the border. They don't want to stop drugs. And they want to take money away from our military, which we cannot do. So those are some of the sticking points.
Your comments the other day made it harder?
Did you see what various senators in the room said about my comments? They were made. No, I'm not a racist. I am the least racist person you have ever interviewed. That I can tell you.
I love that. I'm the least racist person that you've ever interviewed. Now, it just so happens the guy he pointed to mostly interviews really racist people. So Trump being the least racist isn't actually that meaningful. Anyway, we have a president who regularly has to try to convince the world that he's not losing his mind, that he's not a racist. And this is the same Trump, by the way, who on the one hand says he's not racist, but he led the charge that Obama was born in Kenya and faked his birth certificate. He got in trouble in the past for not renting apartments to black people in New York City. He said the Central Park Five were guilty, which they weren't. He said a judge whose parents are Mexican needs to resign because he can't possibly be fair on immigration cases. He said that some Nazi protesters in Charlottesville were very fine people and that Mexicans coming to the United States are criminals, rapists, and thugs, although some are probably good people as well. That's the guy who we have no reason whatsoever to suspect might be a little bit racist.
And it's such a Trumpian response, too. You can't just say, I'm not a racist. You have to say, I'm the least racist person that you've ever interviewed.
Yeah. I don't actually think, by the way, that Trump is necessarily proactively racist. I think Trump is ignorant. I think he grew up in such privileged circumstances that a lot of this stuff, these stereotypes, he believes on the basis of ignorance. Now, that's not a defense, right? Because the impact of whatever policies Trump would favor as a result of that ignorance would still be disastrous, and so I have to criticize them. But that I think that that's more what's going on here. And by the way, even saying I'm not racist, I'm the least racist person, anyone who lives in the world in a sort of normal way harbors some race-related stereotypes. And stereotypes exist at least in part because there's so many people in the world, right? And we have a desire to predict people's behavior, to make the world easier to understand. So you categorize people, right? You categorize people in an attempt to better make sense of the world and to predict what an interaction with a particular person might be like. If someone has this characteristic, it's more likely that they might act in this way or think that way or whatever. Now, it's not a great thing to do and it causes a ton of problems. But the idea of saying, I'm just not racist, it also shows Trump's totally disconnected sort of from the realities of being a human on this planet. And that's where you have to be open to contradictory evidence, right? The way we know behavioral psychology works, oftentimes when people are presented with or they see contradictory evidence, they sometimes become more ingrained in their beliefs, right? When you see that Jewish person who's not cheap, you assume, well, that person is the exception, but as a general, my rule still works. And to use Trump's example about Mexicans being rapists and criminals, if you hear about a group of Mexicans that has absolutely no connection whatsoever to rape or criminality, they must be the exception. But generally speaking, you've still got to have your guard up the way Donald Trump is suggesting. So the entire I'm not racist thing, aside from just being yet another embarrassment by Trump on the international stage, if you want to talk about race relations and stereotypes and prejudice and racism, I'm not racist is a sort of meaningless non-starter. It's completely unproductive in every way.
Yeah, and what you just laid out was exemplified by his announcement that he was running for president when he said that some Mexicans are good people, right? But the vast majority of them are rapists and criminals.
Yes,
He's
effectively.
providing that exception.
Yes, but it's still not changing what the overall immigration policy should be, I guess. Like his view on the immigration policy should be the same, although there's probably exceptions to this rule.
It's supposed to be that by rule, they're good people, and then there are exceptions to that, which are the bad people.
Like with any group that you would imagine could be categorized. So anyway, another Trump embarrassment on the national stage. The video you just watched was made possible by support from you. Please go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show. You can make a pledge of as little as $1 per month. And every dollar helps to support the work that we're doing, particularly in light of the YouTube ad boycott, which has been really bad.